Welcome back. Now, as the world continues to evolve digitally, the need for inclusive, sustainable and collaborative digital transformation has become more urgent than ever, especially across the Commonwealth, specifically for Africa. Now, joining us with this morning for insight to explore the topic of digitization is Nrupesh Soni, the founder of Facilit8 Namibia, a company that has been at the forefront of tech innovation and digital empowerment in the country. Soni, good morning and thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Morning, thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Now, when we talk about digitalization in the Commonwealth for Africa, what do we mean and why are we having this conversation right now?
So, one of the biggest discussions in the Commonwealth the last couple of days has been paperless trade. How can we digitalize trade? And one of the biggest challenges in Africa is digital literacy, digitalization. So the concern is, what happens if you now exclude even more Africans from trade by introducing digitalization? Because already very few have access to all these platforms. And that has been one of my discussion points to say, how do we relook at it? Instead of just digitalization, I'm emphasizing redesigning participation. To say, you know what, let's look at solutions from an African point of view. There's 16 African countries in Commonwealth. They have their own unique challenges. So when coming up with all these different rules and trade regulations around Commonwealth, let's look at their needs first, because Africa is one of the biggest consumer markets right now. And that's somehow the discussions need to go there and be a lot more inclusive of our needs than just saying, here are the platforms, use them.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We must be very specifically to those countries, and we must consider the issue of digital divide.
Absolutely. Like with Africa, no one-size-fits-all will never work. And that has been happening for so many decades, where we told, look, here's a platform, use it. And it doesn't work like that anymore.
Doesn't work like that anymore. Now, from the discussions that you have seen, and you were sitting on a panel at the Commonwealth Summit, Business Summit, and the Ministers of Trade meeting that is ending today, did you pick up that perhaps that the Commonwealth is doing enough to include African member states in this digital revolution, or some countries perhaps being left behind? Because it's one thing to make a statement to say, let us be inclusive. Digitization, if we do digitization, it will ensure that we become a $1 trillion economy coming from the 55 billion economy right now, and then by 2027 it can become a $2 trillion economy. It's an easy thing to say because we are not on par. I mean, we are not on par. We saw the issue of vaccines, when we were saying export them to other countries so that they can be able to produce. That hasn't been able to happen.
And I think that's the first step towards that has been, the first big step has been they've done it outside UK now for the first time ever, which is a great start for Africa, the fact that chose Namibia. And as we always promoting Namibia as the gateway to Africa, I think this is where we can lead the digital and innovation side to say, you know what, these are our needs, this is the problems on the ground. We have innovative companies and youth in Namibia and Africa who can come up with solutions if you just include them at the discussion tables to say, look, here is, and I've seen now with the delegation who is here, a lot of younger minds from Commonwealth who are here to understand what Africa needs. And the discussions have been, how do we create equal platforms where we also have a way to give our data, our input, our needs, and then the solution can then be customized for us. Because the priority is not just digitalization, but it's also digital literacy. Across Commonwealth African countries, the numbers we have seen, it's actually very bad in terms that only 4% of African schools, 4% of schools in the African Commonwealth have internet connectivity. That's it. 4% is very low. Then there is the challenges of data, cost of data across these countries. One of the statistics I came across, or I calculated, is 5% of salary goes to 1 GB of data in these countries on average, which just shows the affordability is just not there. So how do we change that first before we introduce paperless trade? We have issues of payment gateways. Namibia doesn't accept PayPal and internet. So there are all these challenges that will come into place. So how does it benefit us?
How does it benefit us?
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the practical benefits or real-time opportunities for Namibia and Africa in general that we can obviously gain from digital cooperation across the Commonwealth? And I'm thinking that it is easier for bigger economies who are in the Commonwealth to say we need to go digital, but it won't make sense and you won't be able to reach this $1 trillion or $2 trillion economy if Africa is left behind and we don't put them on equal footing. That struggle will still be able to continue and we'll still be having 40 billion worth of papers involved when doing trade.
Absolutely. One thing I realize and I've seen is Commonwealth is different than other entities. Commonwealth wants to focus on trade and do things. Others just want to fund, which we don't want anymore. We want solutions. And I think with Commonwealth, if they can introduce, and some of the discussions I've been on now, last couple of days has been, how can the developed Commonwealth countries give us platforms to use? Yeah, a simple solution would be, a simple example would be census. We struggle so much with the census. I mean, all these developed Commonwealth countries have it ready. Why can't they just give us the platform to say, here's your platform. It's not going to send us data, host it locally, but it's ready. Commonwealth can pay for it if they have to, but we just want to have solutions going forward and not just studies and assessments and all these things that have been happening for years.
So they must change their approach when it comes to dealing with the continent.
Yes, absolutely. We must change the whole mindset from waiting for funding and studies to just solutions. Platforms, equal platforms that we can all contribute to enough data and discussions where we have ready solutions. World doesn't wait in technology these days. It's so quick that there are solutions out there that can work for us tomorrow rather than waiting for a few years.
Now, Nrupesh, as we're running out of time, unfortunately, if you could have share a direct message to Commonwealth leaders today, especially when it comes from young people, what would you urge them when it comes to prioritizing digital transformation? What would be the priority?
Digital transformation without real change, without understanding what's happening on the ground level in Africa is not transformation. It's just repackaged in some new terms, but it won't make a difference. And that's why I emphasize the word redesign participation rather than just digital transformation, where we also have a say. Namibian SMEs have a say in these regulations that are being discussed, so that the 16 countries from Africa benefit from it directly, rather than just be given a decision that's been made without them.
Well, Nrupesh, thank you so much for making time to speak to us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks. That was Nrupesh Soni, who is a founder and CEO of Facilit8 Namibia, talking to us about digitization. This is also taking part in terms of the ongoing Commonwealth Business Summit and Ministers Meeting that is ending today, that started on the 18th. It concludes today, also indicating that digital transformation without redesigning participation for the African continent, especially those 16 countries that are part of the Commonwealth, and also without taking into consideration the issue of digital literacy, will be meaningless. So definitively saying different approach is needed. If we don't take the different approach, we won't get those results that we want. Stay tuned as we continue with more conversations right here on Good Morning Namibia.